Can you believe that starting January 1st, 2026, everything you thought you knew about U.S. immigration just changed overnight? If you're waiting for your green card, planning to renew your visa, applying for an EAD, or preparing to travel internationally, the news I'm about to share with you is absolutely critical. Major policy shifts have just taken effect that could impact your immigration status, your ability to work, your travel plans, and even your path to becoming a U.S. citizen. If you're an immigrant in the United States or planning to come here, what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes could save you from costly mistakes and serious delays. Stay with me because this information is breaking news and you need to understand it right now. Welcome back to US Visa Info, your most trusted source for accurate, timely, and critical information about US immigration, visas, green cards, work permits, and citizenship. I'm your host, and today we're bringing you breaking news that affects millions of immigrants across the United States. January 2026 has started with massive changes to US immigration policy that nobody saw coming this fast. We're talking about expanded travel bans affecting 39 countries, new visa application pauses, increased USCIS fees, enhanced security screening, including facial recognition and social media vetting, changes to the naturalization exam, reduced EAD validity periods, and delays in processing times across all categories. These are not rumors or speculation. These are official policy changes that went into effect on January 1st, 2026, and they will directly impact your immigration journey. Whether you're here on a work visa, waiting for your green card, applying for citizenship, or planning to travel internationally. In this video, I'm going to break down every single change in detail, explain who is affected, what the consequences are, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect your status and avoid serious problems. So, make sure you watch until the very end, because every second of this video contains information that could make the difference between success and failure in your immigration case. Let me start with the biggest and most shocking change that has immigrants across the country extremely concerned. On January 1st, 2026, Presidential Proclamation NES 98 took effect, dramatically expanding travel restrictions to nationals from 39 countries. This is not a minor update. This is a massive expansion of the travel ban that affects thousands of people who are planning to come to the United States, or we're hoping to bring family members here. The United States is fully or partially suspending entry for and visa issuance to nationals of 39 countries. The countries subject to full visa suspension include Afghanistan, Burma, Burkina Faso, Chad, Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Mali, Niger, North Korea, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, Laos, and Sierra Leone. Countries subject to partial visa suspension include Cuba, Russia, Nicaragua, and Turkmenistan. An executive order by President Trump went into effect on January 1st, adding 7 countries to a travel ban list that fully prevents their residents from entering the United States, citing national security concerns with new additions, including Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, Syria, Laos, and Sierra Leone. What does this mean in practical terms? If you're a national of one of these countries, your visa application will likely be denied or put on hold indefinitely. No visas issued before January 1st, 2026. At 12:01 a.m., EST have been or will be revoked pursuant to the proclamation. So, if you already have a valid visa that was issued before January 1st, your visa is still valid, and you can use it to enter the United States. However, if you need to apply for a new visa or renew an expired visa, you will face major obstacles. The proclamation removes certain categorical exceptions that were previously available. The following categorical exceptions provided in Presidential Proclamation 49 for nationals subject to the suspension on entry are no longer available. Immediate family immigrant visas, adoption visas, and Afghan special immigrant visas. This means that even immediate family members of U.S. citizens and green card holders from these countries will struggle to get visas. Think about what this means. If you're a U.S. citizen trying to bring your spouse, parents, or children from one of these countries, the process just became incredibly difficult. The second major development is that USCIS has announced It is pausing the review of immigration applications from an additional 20 countries. The Department of Homeland Security is pausing the immigration applications from an additional 20 countries after an expansion of travel restrictions took effect January, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, in a memo released Thursday, said it would pause the review of all pending applications for visas, green cards, citizenship, or asylum from immigrants from the additional countries. This is absolutely unprecedented. If your green card application, citizenship application, or asylum case involves one of these countries, your case is now frozen. USCIS is not processing these applications right now. They have also announced plans to re-review applications as far back as 2021. The memo also outlines plans to re-review applications of immigrants from these countries as far back as 2021. What this means is that even if your application was approved years ago, USCIS might reopen your case and review it again under these new security standards. This creates massive uncertainty for people who thought their cases were finished. The third major change affects everyone applying for immigration benefits because USCIS has increased fees effective January 1st, 2026. According to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, several immigration-related fees will increase from January 1st, 2026. The asylum application fee increased from $100 to $100 to $2. Green card application fees have increased. Work permit fees have increased. Citizenship application fees have increased. From January 1st, 2026, applicants must pay revised fees or risk having their requests rejected. This is critical to understand. If you submit an application postmarked on or after January 1st with the old fee amount, USCIS will reject your entire application. You must include the new correct fee. For many immigrants, these fee increases represent a significant financial burden on top of all the other costs associated with immigration. The fourth major change is the expansion of biometric collection and security screening at all U.S. entry points. Under a rule effective December 26th, U.S. Customs and Border Protection can now collect facial recognition data from all non-citizens entering and exiting the United States, including green card holders at airports, land crossings, and seaports. This means every single time you enter or exit the United States, even if you're a green card holder who has been living here for 20 years, your face will be scanned and the data will be stored. The stated purpose is national security, but this represents a significant increase in surveillance of all immigrants. Additionally, CBP is expanding social media screening requirements. CBP plans to require 5 years of social media history for applicants using the electronic system for travel authorization, citing national security requirements tied to a 2020 executive order. If you're traveling under the visa waiver program using ESTA, you will now have to provide detailed information about all your social media accounts for the past 5 years. This requirement has also been expanded to H-1B workers and their families. On December 3rd, the U.S. State Department announced the expansion of its online presence review requirement to include H-1B workers and H-4 dependent with applicants now instructed to disclose social media identifiers and ensure that their accounts are set to public visibility during the visa adjudication process. The fifth major development concerns employment authorization documents, commonly called work permits or EADs. USCIS has announced significant changes that will affect millions of people who rely on EADs to work legally in the United States. On December 4th, USCIS announced enhanced screening measures across several benefit categories and reduced the maximum validity period for certain employment authorization documents to 18 months. Previously, many EADs were valid for 2 or 3 years. Now, certain categories will only receive 18-month validity periods. This means you will need to renew your EAD more frequently, which means more applications, more fees, more paperwork, and more risk of gaps in your work authorization. Processing times for EAD applications continue to be problematic. As of late 2025, average EAD processing times ranged from 4 to 7 months, depending on your category and which service center is handling your application. For H-4 EAD holders, the spouses of H-1B workers, the situation is even worse, with some cases taking 6 to 12 months or longer. USCIS had previously implemented an automatic 540-day extension for certain EAD renewals. But this program ended in late 2025, creating additional pressure on applicants to file early and avoid work authorization gaps. The sixth major change affects people pursuing U.S. citizenship. The naturalization exam has been completely redesigned and became significantly harder. The new exam doubles the number of oral questions to 20 and requires 12 correct answers to pass. Previously, you had to answer 6 out of 10 questions correctly. Now, you must answer 12 out of 20 questions correctly, which is a much higher standard. The test removed geography questions and now mandates naming all 3 branches of government. If you're preparing for your citizenship interview, you need to study with the new version of the test because the content and format have changed substantially. The seventh major change is the announcement of what President Trump calls the Trump Gold Card program. President Donald Trump announced the Trump Gold Card, a $1 million program offering expedited lawful permanent residency under EB1 or EB2 status. This program would allow wealthy individuals to essentially buy a green card by paying $1 million. The program is being promoted as a way to generate revenue for the U.S. government. While this might benefit very wealthy individuals, it does nothing to help the millions of immigrants waiting in line through normal immigration channels and could actually make those backlogs worse by diverting USCIS resources. The eighth major change concerns the Diversity Visa Lottery Program. On December 18th, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced that the department is pausing the DV1 portion of the Diversity Immigrant Visa Lottery Program, which annually allocates up to 55,000 visas. If you or your family members were selected in the Diversity Visa Lottery and are waiting to proceed with your case, you need to check your status immediately because this pause could delay or even cancel your opportunity to come to the United States. The Diversity Visa program has been a critical pathway for immigrants from underrepresented countries, and this pause creates enormous uncertainty for thousands of families who are counting on this program. The ninth major change affects a specific group of immigrants. H.R. 5371, signed on November 12, 2025, extends the employment fourth preference certain religious workers category until January 30, 2026, with no SR visas being issued overseas or final action taken on adjustment of status cases after midnight January 29, 2026. If you're a religious worker applying under this category, you have an extremely tight deadline. You must be admitted to the United States no later than midnight on January 29, 2026. Any visas issued under this category before that date will only be valid until January 29th. If Congress doesn't extend this program beyond January 30th, the entire category will become unavailable immediately. Now let me talk about what all these changes mean for different groups of immigrants and what you need to do right now. If you're currently outside the United States and planning to apply for a visa, you need to check immediately whether your country is on the restricted list. If you're from one of the 39 affected countries, you need to understand that getting a U.S. visa right now is going to be extremely difficult or impossible. If you already have a valid visa that was issued before January 1st, you should strongly consider traveling to the United States before any additional restrictions are announced. If you're planning to apply for a new visa, you need to be prepared for long delays, extensive additional documentation requirements, social media screening, and a high possibility of denial. Consider consulting with an experienced immigration attorney before you submit your application, because the rules are changing so rapidly that what was acceptable last month might not be acceptable today. If you're a green card holder, these changes affect you too. Even though you're already a permanent resident, the expanded biometric screening means your face will be scanned every time you enter or exit the country. If you're from one of the countries on the restricted list, you need to be extra careful about international travel because even though your green card remains valid, you could face additional screening, delays, and questioning at the border. Make sure all your documents are current and in order. Carry proof of your ties to the United States, such as employment letters, property documents, and family information. If you're planning to apply for citizenship, start preparing now. With the new version of the naturalization exam, because it's significantly harder than before. If you're on a work visa like H-1B, L-1, or ERO-1, you need to be aware of the expanded social media screening requirements. When you apply for visa renewal Or when you travel internationally and return to the United States, consular officers and border officers can now review your social media history extensively. Make sure your social media accounts don't contain anything that could be considered problematic, controversial, or inconsistent with your stated purpose for being in the United States. Consider reviewing your social media presence with an immigration attorney if you have any concerns. The H-1B program has also seen significant changes with proposed reforms to how visas are awarded with an emphasis on higher salaries and advanced skills. There's also now a $100,000 fee for H-1B applications under certain circumstances, making this visa category much more expensive for employers. If you're waiting for your employment authorization document, you need to understand that processing times are long and unpredictable right now. The current average is 4 to 7 months, but some people are waiting much longer. If your EAD is expiring soon, you need to file your renewal application at least 120 to 180 days before expiration to avoid gaps in your work authorization. Make absolutely certain you include the correct fee amount because USCIS will reject applications with incorrect fees. Consider whether you might qualify for premium processing if it's available for your category, as this can reduce processing time to 30 days. File online if possible, because online applications are processed 10 to 20 days faster than paper applications on average. Keep detailed records of everything you submit and check your case status regularly online. If your EAD expires and your renewal is still pending, then to talk to your employer immediately about your options, because working without valid authorization, even by accident, can have serious immigration consequences. If you're preparing for your citizenship interview, you need to start studying immediately with the new version of the naturalization exam. The test is now harder with 20 questions instead of 10, and you need to answer 12 correctly instead of 6. The content has changed with some topics removed and others added. Download the new study materials from the USCIS website and consider taking a citizenship preparation class if one is available in your community. Practice the English speaking and reading components because those haven't changed, but they remain a major challenge for many applicants. Make sure all your documentation is in order, including your tax returns, selective service registration if applicable, and proof of continuous residence and physical presence in the United States. If you have family members abroad that you're trying to bring to the United States, you need to understand that the process just became much more complicated, especially if they're from one of the 39 restricted countries. Even immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, which previously had priority and exemptions, are now facing restrictions. You need to work with an experienced immigration attorney to understand whether your family members can still qualify under any of the limited exceptions that remain available. Be prepared for very long processing times, requests for extensive additional documentation, and the possibility that your petition might be denied even if it would have been approved under the previous rules. Stay informed about any policy changes, because immigration policy is extremely fluid right now, with new announcements happening frequently. For everyone in the immigration system, regardless of your specific category, here's my critical advice. First, stay informed by following official sources like USCIS, the State Department, and CBP for the latest updates. Second, keep all your documents organized, current, and easily accessible. Third, file all applications early with plenty of time before deadlines. Fourth, include correct fees and complete documentation to avoid rejections and delays. Fifth, consider consulting with a licensed immigration attorney, especially if your case is complex or if you're from one of the affected countries. Sixth, avoid international travel unless absolutely necessary, because the situation at borders and consulates is unpredictable right now. Seventh, maintain legal status at all times, because violations that might have been overlooked before are now being scrutinized much more carefully. Eighth, build financial reserves because immigration is expensive, and processing times mean you might go longer without work authorization or face unexpected costs. Ninth, be prepared for longer processing times across all categories. 10th, document everything, because if USCIS or the State Department asks for additional evidence, you need to be able to provide it immediately. Let me also address the emotional and psychological impact of these changes, because I know many of you watching this are feeling scared, frustrated, angry, and uncertain about your future. These feelings are completely valid and understandable. The immigration system has always been challenging, but what we're seeing now in January 2026 represents some of the most significant restrictions and policy shifts in recent history. You worked hard to come to the United States legally. You followed all the rules. You invested time, money, and emotional energy into building your life here. And now suddenly the rules are changing in ways that feel unfair and arbitrary. I want you to know that you're not alone. Millions of immigrants across the country are experiencing the same concerns and facing the same challenges. There are organizations, community groups, legal clinics, and advocacy organizations that can provide support, information, and assistance. Don't suffer in silence or make decisions based on fear without guidance.